Hello dear friends. Military technology is much more advanced than civilian technology. So much that it is almost seems like science fiction, but it is sometimes used for destructive purposes. Opinion article. Designing reality. US Navy patents would cause a paradigm shift. China develops suicide military helmets. Also creates killer satellites and weapons. Ufo caused Tunguska explosion according to CIA. We are not the first civilization to face catastrophe. Mars was once habitable and had an oxygen-rich atmosphere. Pentagon has a talking laser that sends messages to the head. Trump announces his new censorship-free social media platform. Company sells cannibalized meat made from celebrities. Pentagon says Army doesn't have resources for urban combat. Police uncover possible militia plot to violate Capitol. Texas governor ends statewide facemask mandate. Plan to transform Earth originated 2 decades ago, according to Matthew Ward. Let's start. Designing the fabric of our reality at the most fundamental level is part of a series of patents for futuristic and fanciful technology held by the US Navy called the Ufo Patents, which include inventions by Dr. Salvador Cesar Pais that have been claimed to be capable of designing reality. Another Pais patent also describes the pieces of technology needed to make his creations a reality. Pais said such technology would be highly disruptive, capable of a total paradigm shift in science and technology. Meanwhile, another Pais patent describes an electromagnetic generator that could create an impenetrable shield for military assets located at sea, on land, and in space. One of Pais' patents describes an aerospace submarine craft capable of incredible speed and maneuverability underwater, in the air, and even in space. The cone-shaped craft supposedly can achieve this by creating a quantum vacuum around itself with a very dense polarized energy field. This field allows it to repel any molecule that comes into contact with the craft, regardless of the medium. At the same time, manipulation of quantum field fluctuations in the local vacuum energy state would help reduce a ship's inertia, giving it its extreme maneuverability. In addition, the patent states that if vacuum creation technology can be engineered, it will allow scientists to engineer the fabric of our reality at the most fundamental level. This could possibly lead to significant advances in aerospace propulsion and power generation, in addition to other reality-changing outcomes. Military news. Pentagon scientists have a talking laser that sends messages to the head. It may sound like something you only see in science fiction, but experts say we may be just a few years away from talking lasers that would have the power to transmit messages directly to our heads. Instead of emitting a flashing light or shouting over the loudspeaker to keep people away from sensitive areas, new technology being developed could allow troops to fire a laser that can form a ball of plasma that would talk to potential intruders. The US Army is testing surveillance balloons around the country to spy on people's movements and track their movement. The balloon can float at 65,000 feet. SpaceX tests a Starship SN-10 rocket, but it ends up exploding. SpaceX tested its Starship SN-10 prototype rocket after 2 recent failed attempts, but it exploded 6 minutes after landing. The prototype rocket flew to an altitude of 10,000 kilometers and then landed on the ground, although it didn't stay fully vertical. The explosion occurred after the engine cooling procedure. Elon Musk's mother recalls that her son had to retake a computer science exam because his grade was too incredible. The mother of SpaceX and Tesla founder Elon Musk has revealed that when her son was studying at the University of Pretoria in South Africa, he had to retake a computer science exam, though not because he did badly, but because his scores were so perfect that the examiners couldn't believe it. The Perseverance uses Apple technology from the 90s. The Perseverance rover runs on a PowerPC 750 processor, the same one in Apple's original 1998 iMac G3, as a way to improve efficiency despite having only one core. The more information it processes, the better the chip becomes at predicting what to do next. I have this relic, iMac G3, and it works still, and even is able to navigate. China news. China becomes the first country in the world with more than 1,000 billionaires. Over the past year, the Asian giant has added 259 new super rich, more than all other countries combined. China has become the first country in the world with more than 1,000 billionaires, with a total of 1,058. Second place goes to the United States with 696, while the third place goes to India, followed by Germany, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and Russia. China develops suicide military helmets with remote self-destruct capability. Chinese soldiers stationed in Tibet will don a newly developed suicide helmet equipped with a self-destruct button that the soldiers or their commander can press at will by the remote control. The button initiates the explosion of an embedded bomb, effectively killing the soldier. Soldiers can also press the button themselves. If a soldier is seriously wounded and doesn't want to be captured, he can activate the self-destruct function himself. This can maintain his dignity as well as prevent the enemy from obtaining this system, the report reads. China developing killer satellites and directed energy weapons. Defense Secretary Mark Esper warned that China is developing killer satellites and directed energy weapons that he plans to use against the United States. Esper made the warning as part of a keynote address he gave at the Air Force Association's 2020 Virtual Air Space and Cyber Conference. As part of his warning, Esper stated that China is turning space into a war domain, using sophisticated technologies to achieve space superiority over the United States. Russia has also fallen under the Pentagon's watchful eye. US Space Command officials revealed that Russia has conducted a new anti-satellite missile test. Beijing has 3 ways it could attack the world. Zhao Zhengye, professor at the Shenyang Institute of Technology, described 3 ways China could try to destroy the US and the rest of the world with nuclear weapons. First, detonate a nuclear submarine that would be loaded with nuclear weapons in the Pacific Ocean, so that shock waves would exceed 2,000 meters and submerge surrounding areas. Second one, detonate thousands of nuclear bombs in the Himalayan mountains at the same time to change the orbit of the planet. Third one, drill 10,000 meters deep into the Sichuan basin and plant thousands of nuclear weapons. Then detonate them all at once, theoretically collapsing the Earth's core and causing global extermination. Terrible. Tunguska explosion. ZIA documents revealed that scientists claim that the Tunguska explosion was caused by a UFO. One document in particular mentions the possibility that the Tunguska event was caused by UFOs. The 2 pages in question describe a particular investigation into the 60s Tunguska event by the Soviet Union. It addresses the history of UFO sightings, but highlights the Tunguska explosion as the most notable UFO phenomenon in history. The focal point of this declassified document is a couple of sentences describing the flight of the Tunguska meteorite. Based on analysis of Soviet-wide observations and additional research, it is believed that the Tunguska object performed a maneuver while falling from the sky. The SIA file continues the author's view that if the government confirms that the Tunguska explosion was a UFO, it would raise a variety of major new issues around the world. The author expresses concept that if the existence of extraterrestrials is confirmed, it would bring chaos and doom. The paper ends by suggesting, almost forcing, that all UFO claims related to the Tunguska explosion should be dismissed. According to the author, the investigation should be strictly scientific, and there would be no room for anything extraordinary. But it was extraordinary, really. Nevertheless, the declassified ZIA document proves that a UFO was the cause of the explosion. The president of the official organization called Tunguska Space Phenomenon suggested that an alien civilization located in the Siberian taiga protected us from destruction by exploding a meteorite. According to him, a UFO deliberately collided with the Tunguska meteorite to protect us, but this is only one theory of many. Another theory, suggested by one of the first researchers to conduct an expedition 100 years ago, he stated that the Tunguska event was provoked by beings from other worlds to expand our knowledge. The problem would be that humankind would not be ready for this knowledge, and it will only be revealed to us when we reach the necessary state of advancement. But it seems that humankind is ready for deception and abuse. Catastrophism. We are not the first civilization on Earth to face catastrophe. According to Mike Adams, what few modern people seem to recognize is that this would be not the first time that a human civilization has fallen on planet Earth. At least one ancient world civilization has also collapsed, and almost all evidence of its existence has long been buried or destroyed. In such a case, the entire digital realm of human knowledge would disappear, since today there are no storage systems created by humans that can store information for 1,000 years. Hard disks lose their integrity in about a decade, and even optical storage media degrade in a century or two. Perhaps the only evidence that might remain of our current civilization would be concrete breaches, and the layer of microplastics deposited around the world, leading future archaeologists to declare that this collapsed civilization existed during a toxic time. Human civilization is far more fragile than most people recognize, and with anti-human globalists now deliberately trying to collapse photosynthesis and the entire world food supply. Mars was once habitable, and its atmosphere was probably formed throughout the same process as Earth. A tantalizing new study published in the journal Nature Astronomy suggests that Mars may have been habitable before. Researchers from Hong Kong and China found that the Martian atmosphere may have evolved in the same way that Earth's atmosphere did. It was once filled with toxic gases that heated the planet. Then a large oxidation event that was potentially fueled by photosynthetic organisms deposited oxygen in that. Dystopian world. Human reproduction could be a thing of the past. Men today have only about half the amount of sperm their grandfathers had, and the situation is getting progressively worse with each passing day. Women are also suffering a decline in egg quality, which is leading to more miscarriages. However, men seem to be the number one enemy of the depopulation agenda, targeting their reproductive role as never before in history. If things continue on their current trajectory, most people will need assisted reproductive technology to procreate by 2050. A company claims to sell cannibalized meat made from celebrity tissue samples. A company known as Violate Labs claimed to have discovered a way to produce cannibalized meat from their tissue samples. According to Violate Labs website, the company produces fine artisanal salami from meat that has been long grown from celebrity tissue samples, as predicted by Winston Churchill in 1931. Churchill spoke of a future where all the world's meat would be grown in laboratories, which inspired Violate Labs to develop just that, except with one change. Instead of creating chicken wings or breasts, Violate Labs decided to bring Hollywood to your plate. New platform. New censorship-free social media platform. The Washington Examiner announced Thursday that Donald Trump has told friends that he has hundreds of millions of dollars to back a new social media company that would give him an online presence and protect them from being shut down by censors. According to two sources familiar with the situation, the investor included Silicon Valley leaders concerned about censorship and the cancellation culture. On March 1st, at 8:15 a.m., a new secure platform for the Internet was being tested. The information system had been developed by the Space Force with 3 satellites called the Starlink system that would connect to cell phones and computers around the world for a much more secure and efficient system than what we have now. Its expected that there will be a worldwide medial takeover on the Starlink system. Political news. House Democrats pass election reform bill. The House of Representatives late on March 3rd passed a sweeping election reform bill that, if signed into law, would affect multiple aspects of the election process and campaign finance. The election reforms include a radical expansion of vote by mail, early and absentee voting, as well as automatic online registration, even on election day, with minimal verification, which would make it easier to cheat. Police uncover possible militia plot to breach Capitol. Capitol Police say they have uncovered intelligence of a possible plot by a militia group to breach the US Capitol on Thursday, nearly 2 months after a mob of people stormed the iconic building. 150 missing children rescued in Tennessee. A joint operation between the law enforcement agencies that began months ago resulted in the recovery of 150 missing minors in Tennessee out of 240 identified as missing statewide. Pentagon says Army lacks resources for urban combat in dystopian megacities. The Pentagon envisions a dystopian future in which the military would be ill-equipped for urban combat. In a video titled Megacities Urban Future Emerging Complexity, shown at the Joint Special Operations University, the Pentagon presented disturbing images of a crowded urban sprawl marked by riots and poverty. The narrator is heard gloomily explaining that the Army would lack the resources to handle such a scenario. Texas news. Texas governor ends a statewide mask mandate, lifts all restrictions on businesses. On Tuesday, March 2nd, Governor Greg Abbott ended the statewide mask mandate in Texas. In addition to this, Abbott also allowed all businesses in the state to fully reopen. Texas is committed to going against the wishes of public and federal health officials who have urged states not to abandon their restrictions. Biden criticizes Texas lifting of restrictions. JB called the decision by Texas and Mississippi to revoke state orders to wear the masks a big mistake in his opinion, and called the move Neanderthal thinking. Texas lawmakers cited global warming as the reason they didn't prepare the power grid for winter. Texas' latest excuse for why much of the state power grid failed during the recent cold weather wave is that Republican lawmakers were counting on an alleged global warming to keep power production systems from freezing. Instead of properly winterizing the state's wind turbines, lawmakers relied on a global warming report that claimed Texas would be 1.6 degrees warmer on average, eliminating their need to invest on their proper maintenance. The censor religious speech. Amazon bans books about Christian teachings and biblical principles. Facebook bans high-profile Christians who talk about their faith and moral principles. Canceling Christians and labeling their beliefs as hate speech is a prelude to communism. Japan. Japanese man saves forgotten cats in Fukushima. A decade ago, Sakae Kato stayed to rescue cats abandoned by neighbors fleeing clouds of radiation sweeping from the nearby Fukushima nuclear plant. She won't be leaving. In quotes, I want to make sure I'm here to take care of the last one, she said, from her home in the contaminated quarantine zone. In quotes, after that, I want to die, whether it's a day or an hour later. So far, she has buried 23 cats in her garden. Cattle leaves feral cat food in a storage shed that he heats with kerosene stove. She has also rescued a dog named Pochi. He is also caring for 41 others in her home, and in another vacant building on her property. Yen near 7-month low. The Japanese yen touched a 7-month low against the dollar on Thursday, as hopes that vaccine delivery and more government stimulus will push the U.S. economy into a solid rebound, lifted the dollar and benchmark treasury yields. Finland, Germany, Denmark, and Estonia called for accelerating digital transition. The heads of government of Finland, Germany, Denmark, and Estonia have sent a letter to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen calling on the European Union to accelerate the digital transition. The danger behind digital currencies. In the future, digital currencies should replace cumbersome physical money. While governments argue that their introduction would help them detect criminals, they have a sinister motive for putting them into circulation and don't talk about it much, says Chief Gold, a consulting firm. South America. A daughter of Maradona calls a march in Buenos Aires to demand justice for the death of her father. Janina Maradona has called demonstration at the obelisk for March 10th in order to promote the social condemnation of those she judges responsible for the death of the Argentine star. In quotes, please, we'll see you all there. With these words, encourages Janina Maradona, daughter of Diego Armando Maradona, to attend the mobilization called for the next Wednesday, March 10th, at the emblematic obelisk of Buenos Aires, which will demand a trial and punishment to those allegedly responsible for the death of the historic Argentine footballer. The Temple of Philadelphia, an Argentinian sect accused of enslaving 100 people. Argentinian society follows in this belief the case against the coercive organization in the province of Buenos Aires, which, under the guise of a religious cult and under the orders of a septuagenarian false prophetess, enriched herself by stripping its followers of their belongings, forced them into servitude and appropriated and abused their children. Biden extends the national emergency with respect to Venezuela. JB extended for 1 more year the declaration of national emergency that considers Venezuela as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the U.S. Transformation Plan. The plan to transform life on Earth didn't originate just 2 decades ago with the U.S. legislation called NISARA, or a decade earlier with the global peace movement known as harmonic convergence, according to Matthew Watt's latest message through his mother, Susan Watt. Indeed, those were great milestones to celebrate, but the plan to restore the planet to its Eden self, a beautiful pristine world where all life forms live together in peace and joy, emerged countless millennia ago when God inspired to the highest universal council to undertake that divine mission when the time was right. After the duck arrived to the planet long before it was called Earth, it became one of the most proficient schools in the universe for souls who wanted to evolve outside the limitations of that density. Consequently, for eons, the karmic merry-go-round went round and round, and the negativity that continued to accumulate was draining the very life out of the planet. Gaia, the soul incarnate on the planet, despaired and pleaded for help. With love and caring, powerful civilizations, responded by emitting a light that saved lives, and many of their members, like you, began to incarnate here to help the peoples of Gaia awaken and free themselves from the grip of darkness. The divine secular plan is unfolding now. That brings us to what is happening in the world at this time, and what is on the very near horizon. International efforts to destroy the entire Illuminati network continue apace, and while it may not appear that anything significant has happened since the light forces in the US deviated from Plan A, action on many fronts has moved forward rapidly, and a potential national disaster was averted. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.